Good afternoon. Today is May 1, Friday, May 1, 2020. It is approximately 1:39. Sorry for the late start today. We're conducting a public test of the voting machines at the same time, so we were a little late coming over, and we've had some AV issues as well. My name is Andrew Volz. I'm the Vice Chairman of the LaPorte County Election Board. At this point, I'd ask everyone who has an electronic device to make sure it's on mute so we don't get interrupted in the meeting. I'd ask you all to stand and face the flag, recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Vice Chairman Andrew Volz is present. Kathleen Kroback.
present.
And we have a new board member that is the Democratic appointee, Nelson Pichardo.
Present.
Okay. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda today is the election of board officers. Because Mr. Pichardo replaced Amber Poff as the Democratic appointee, we do need to have an election of board officers. So I would entertain a motion at this point to provide for the position of chairman.
Okay. First of all, I would very much like to welcome Nelson to the board. Thank you for agreeing to serve. This has been a very challenging year up to this point. Things are changing daily as we're trying to conduct an election. This is my first presidential election, and it's a learning curve for me. Even though I've done 4 elections already, this one's completely different. And it comes with a great deal of hurdles that we're trying to get through right now, and I can't even tell you as it's changing daily. Trying to make the voting population safe, the location safe for our voters that want to vote in person. That being said, I'm going to defer from the usual because normally, me being a Democrat, Nelson would be the chair that would be nominated, but because of Andrew's experience, way more than mine, he's done this more than once or twice before in the presidential election, I am going to nominate him. He is Andrew Volz as the chair. He is experienced. He comes with a lot of knowledge. He knows the election law without reading it most times in the book, even though he carries it with him everywhere he goes. I feel comfortable with that. It's changing as we go, and I feel more comfortable having somebody there that knows more about this than I do. And nothing against Nelson, but I nominate Andrew Volz as chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kroback. And before I second that motion, I would like to have some discussion, if that's okay. I think it's essential for this board to work together to get things done. We have to be a team ready to find solutions on how it is best to facilitate the election process. And Mr. Volz, I have a question for you. As the nominee for the chairperson, do you promise to work together to ensure that we do everything we can to allow the LaPorte voters to cast a vote and to do it in a safe manner that takes into consideration the community's health?
Absolutely. I mean, there are steps in place that have been indicated by the Indiana Election Commission that have been disseminated to all county election boards for proper spacing and proper PPE issues that we will be discussing further on in the meeting. Further, there is always the option, especially this year, without excuse, that someone has the opportunity to request an application for an absentee ballot. Further, that's been opened up now, whereas you can do it directly online with the in.gov website. And what happens with that is you submit your application information online, and then you go through the process. And then what you wind up doing is submitting your request for an application from your own home. And the application would be mailed to you, or excuse me, you're filling out the application online, and then the application is going to SVRS, and then the ballots would be distributed that way. So there are options that are available, but I also want to remind everybody that the right to vote is the most sacred right that we have as citizens of this country and of this county. And traditionally, people vote in person. And granted, there are changes are coming, absolutely. And I'm all for changes that facilitate the ability to vote. that encourage voting, that encourage participation in the election, because otherwise, if you don't participate, it's always been my position, if you don't participate in the election process, you don't get to complain about what happens afterwards. So Nelson, to answer your question, absolutely, I'm willing to explore options, certainly, but it's got to be through a deliberative process. We can't go off half-cocked. We have to make sure that it's well explained and easily understandable by everyone, because there's half bits of information out there on one site, there's another bit of information on another site. We need to streamline voters' access to this information. And then with regards to working together, I think that anyone that has been a part of these meetings over the last 5 years or 6 years or so that I've been involved, whether it was with the predecessor, Sam, may he rest in peace, or Amber coming in later, we have always worked together in a bipartisan fashion, and I think that's a signature of this board, and I would like that to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Volz. If that's your position, if you make that promise to me, then I would second your nomination as chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor for Andrew Volz to be the chairperson of LaPorte County Election Board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. We do need to then nominate an individual for vice chair, and I would make the nomination that Nelson Pichardo obviously would take that position because Kathy is the secretary.
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second for Nelson Pichardo to be elected as the vice chair of the LaPorte County Election Board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 27th of 2020. That was the last election board meeting that took place. I've reviewed the minutes, and having reviewed the minutes, I believe they are an accurate representation of the meeting that took place that day, so I would make a motion then that those minutes be approved.
I'd second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. New business. First item on the agenda under new business is the announcement of the new primary date of June 2nd, 2020. I believe this information has already been widely disseminated, whether it's been through county commissioners meetings here locally, whether it's been on the county's website, but also indeed every day that Governor Holcomb maintains his address that takes place at 1:30 local time. I can't remember the last time after listening to that he hasn't reminded voters that the primary date has moved from what would have been next Tuesday to June 2nd. And I think that was a good maneuver and a good move that was made early on in this pandemic to allow more time for social distancing, for testing, as to not overwhelm hospitals with potential patients. And I think it's worked because, as everyone is aware, this is a large, big election. There are a lot of issues on the ballot, and there's a lot of issues that we have as a country, so I would anticipate voter turnout to be very, very high. With that being said, we obviously have some challenges that we have to address with regards to, again, directives that are coming from downstate, from the Indiana Election Commission, where it seems like we're getting a new order every other day, which is good because that means that they're working through the system to do these changes properly and deliberatively, and then getting the information out to the public so that everybody knows what's going on. And I will note, just as a point here, I note that on the LaPorte County website now, which is laporteco.in.gov, there's a banner that runs across the top of the page, and that banner now has an indication with regards to primary voting options. And then also under the election tab, that'll take you directly to the clerk of the court site where all of the information is available to you online. Obviously, there are three options with regards to mail-in ballots, but then there are also options as related to in-person voting that need to be addressed as well. And people need to be aware of the fact that the polls and the precincts are going to be open on Election Day to in-person voting. Unless we receive a directive from somebody with more authority than we have, the polls will be open. And I think everybody in LaPorte County needs to understand that the polls will be open. Kathy, do you have anything to add?
I would stress that we are having our regular polling places, which there are 83. Everyone will have a on-site voting. Those machines, there was discussion about reducing some of the polling places so that we wouldn't have as many that we would have to deal with, but that's not doable because our machines were programmed prior to COVID-19, and the machines are programmed by precinct. So we have to put the machines out per precinct. They cannot be changed at this point. I don't know as far as attendance at those polling places, how many people will attend. We shall see. That's yet to be determined. But we are scrambling to try and find enough people to work those polls. So far, we're okay. If we have to, we will combine in the place where a clerk might have to do a judge's job, or the precinct inspector might have to help with the clerk's job. We don't know yet, but we are scrambling, trying to fill every position at this time. That's all I have to add.
Mr. Chair, I have some comments on that. Are we going to move on to review of polling locations, or are we going to move to accept the new primary date as June 2nd? Because I do have several comments on regarding the amount of polling places that we have and my concern about not having enough poll workers to staff all of those locations. So my question is, do we want to wait to discuss that when we review polling locations, or do we need to do that now?
I think we can wait till we get to that point on the agenda. I mean, the only thing here was the formality of the announcement to remind everybody that June 2nd is the primary date this year. So obviously the primary date has changed from May 5th to June 2nd, and everybody needs to be aware of that, because if you show up at where you've normally voted, nobody's going to be there.
Do you need a motion to accept the June 2nd date as the new election date or not?
I don't believe so, because it's already been indicated by the state of Indiana.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is early absentee voting, location, dates, and times. Kathy, would you like to weigh in on that?
Early absentee voting has been reduced down to literally 6 days. We are starting May 26th, which is the Tuesday after Memorial Day. It runs Tuesday from 8 to 4. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 to 4. Saturday will be your normal Saturday before election. It's 8 to 3. And then Monday, the day before election, which is June 1st, would be 8 to 12 noon. Our locations have changed somewhat as far as early voting. For our location here at the courthouse, it's going to be in this room. It's going to be reduced down to this corner over here. So for LaPorte Courthouse, it's going to be here in this complex room. For Michigan City, it's going to be over at I would call it the complex or annex of the county, which is at 8th and Wabash. The room on the corner of that long, I call a strip mall building. We're on the end. It will be there. So you're going to be at the 8th and Wabash location for Michigan City, and here in this room for LaPorte. The dates again are the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, and the 30th on Saturday till 3, and Monday the 1st until 12 noon. I think that basically it takes care of it.
Mr. Chair, I move that we change the early voting locations to the county complex meeting room and to the 8th Street offices in Michigan City.
Mr. Pichardo, I believe that has already been done by the commissioners based upon a vote that took place earlier this year.
Do we not need to vote on that as the election board?
It is the commissioners are the ones that choose the voting locations. But again, I think this is for informational purposes here, just to remind everybody that the decision that was made by the county commissioners earlier this year to move the early voting locations out of the courthouses to these quote unquote, I don't believe we're calling them satellite locations.
No,
because that would have required something else.
Technically, a clerk's location.
It's a clerk's location, and that was the way that the commissioners were able to do that.
Okay, thank you. And on that note, the commissioners have also weighed in on some other topics regarding polling locations and the request to send out absentee request ballots. Are we going to also adhere to their recommendation and vote on that?
I believe that will be discussed under the status of absentee applications that's under the new business.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to add the address for the 8th and Wabash location is 302 West 8th Street.
That's 302 West 8th Street.
Correct.
The next item on the agenda is review of new deadlines. Kathy, could you provide kind of an overview of what some of these new deadlines are that have been provided pursuant to these executive orders, as well as orders from the Indiana Election Commission?
I passed out, and you might have already received this. It's and this comes out monthly, although they did send an amended one for April, May, and it's all the deadlines that we need to know. The ones that are really pertinent to us, basically, statewide voters registration deadline is May 4th. That's Monday. After Monday, you cannot register to vote. Another one that I highlighted, May 15th, is when those that are running have to submit their pre-campaign finance report. That's the due date. May 26th, I highlighted, is the first on-site early voting date. I got June 1st highlighted. There's a number of other ones that are on here, but I think for us, these are the important ones that we need to know.
Ms. Kroback, what about May 21st? Isn't that the last day?
Oh, May 21st, yeah. May 21st is the date that your application to get a ballot must be into my office by 4 o'clock. If you email it or fax it, it can come in that way as long as it's the timestamp is 11:59. But if it's coming into my office, it comes in the mail, it comes on May 22nd, it cannot be accepted. So if you are applying for a ballot through the application process, you got to make sure it's in my office by 4 o'clock that day. Otherwise, the following day, your application cannot be accepted. Therefore, if you want to vote, you have to come in person.
Thank you, Ms. Kroback. And just to add to that, because there's a significant change in the fact that you don't have to have an actual reason as before in
Right.
requesting those. So could you please explain that to the public?
Well, before, when you filled out an application for absentee, always, you had to check one of the boxes, and there's a number, they're housebound, out of state, just the different reasons why you can apply for an application to mail in, to do absentee by mail. This year, because of the COVID-19, the state has relaxed that, so you do not need a reason to vote by mail. All you need to do is make sure you file that application timely, and it's signed and dated and into the mail to us.
And Kathy, just to be clear with that, if an individual does submit an application for an absentee ballot, whether it's online, whether it's done by mail, or whether it's done, as you indicated, by email or fax, is there a way that those individuals can check to see if their application was accepted, or is it? Or do they?
Well,
I guess what I'm concerned about is with the hard deadline of May 21st and the early voting reduced from what it was before to only 6 days. People need to be very, very cognizant of what these deadlines are because they're not waivable.
No.
And so, if you want to vote absentee by mail this year, which is certainly your right as per the governor's order, you need to get off. You need to get on that now because, number one, the postal system in LaPorte County is sometimes a little bit sketchy. I'm not the only one that has sent something from LaPorte to LaPorte to see it stamped where it went to Gary, and that makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Or it went to Indy. And with the understanding here that we are sitting May 1st here, so the deadline is 20 days to get your absentee by mail application in and received by the clerk's office. I cannot stress that enough. My understanding is that there have been 1,525 applications that have been received, and of those 1,525 applications that were received, 430 have been returned with ballots. So, the numbers are moving up. So people are taking advantage of the opportunity that this unique situation has presented. And those numbers are available from voters registration. Are there any other deadlines that you believe the public or those?
I can't come. Nothing comes to mind. And
Just a point of clarification. If someone does send in a ballot, which they've requested through an absentee request ballot, does that ballot need to be into your office by a certain date or time?
the actual ballot coming back has to be in. I have to pick everything up from the courthouse or from the post office on election day by 12 noon. So if you mail a ballot in, you actually we have from May 21, and I would say we're really given 48 hours to get a ballot out. We've got a lot. It may take a little longer than that, but by the end of that week or first of the week following, which would be the 26th of May, most ballots should be out by then. And then they need to be back in the post office or to the office on election day.
Right.
If it's on election day, I do go to the post office at noon and pick up what's there. If it's not there, and believe me, they come in the following day, and we get a lot of them the following day, and they cannot be counted, they cannot be opened.
Right. And just to clarify further, the 21st is the date where their request for a ballot has to be into you.
Correct.
And then if they do receive a ballot and they're home, it needs to be filled out properly and returned back to your office by June 2nd at noon.
Correct.
And that can either be done by mail or they can personally deliver it to your office.
They can't usually personally deliver.
Okay.
We don't accept those.
Okay. So it's mail is the only option
Correct.
to get it to you?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else to add with
I can't
regards
think
to
of
early
anything.
absentee voting?
And there are a number of other deadlines on here, and I did go through this. This is a dispatch that's produced by the election division in Indy. They send one out every month. This one, they just send another one revising. I highlighted some things that are pertinent that you might want to read, but I would read through this. It's got a lot of information on it.
Is there a way that anyone can request this? I mean, do they contact the election division downstate, or?
I suppose if somebody wanted a copy, I can run some copies off.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a review of the poll locations. Kathy, you had indicated that, and when we've discussed, this has been discussed before with regards to the governor's original executive order, which addressed the change in the election date, and then the mandates that all public places are available to be
Correct.
used. But the issue that I believe we have here is there are a number of locations that are in facilities that are impacted in some way, shape, or form by the coronavirus situation.
Mm-hmm.
You want to
Well,
elaborate on
I
that?
have not contacted all these yet. Some of them have been difficult to get a hold of, but you've got fire stations obviously are available. Some churches are not. Right now you just can't contact anybody, but we're a whole month away at this point. So hopefully in the next week or two, some of the restrictions will be loosened. There's like Moose is on here. That's a private club. You have community centers, township centers, and those we're not sure of at this point. But again, we're a month out. The ones that are highlighted in yellow, they were moved out of a school corp and into the precinct that's highlighted. So, for instance, the Sinai Temple, MC-17 was moved in with MC-18. Cool Spring 4 was moved in with Cool Spring 5. And Springfield 2 was moved in with Springfield 1. They were in schools prior.
And again, that was part of the discussion earlier
Correct.
this year with regards to moving these locations out of schools, based upon some feedback from members of the public, number one, and I believe the discussion that took place with the commissioner's office as well.
Correct.
What steps have been taken to notify voters in those precincts that their precinct location is changed?
I believe voters registration usually mails out some kind of a card, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
When we make a move like that, there's some kind of a card that you send out to the voter. Right. Right. We'll somehow get a card out to those people.
And I will speak from experience in that on election day, when we've had elections in the past where precinct locations have changed or vote locations have changed, call in to the voter hotline that is available, meaning call into the county complex, 326-6808. And then you're going to want to talk to the clerk's office because that's Election Central. And we're able, obviously, to pull up with your voter ID information where your precinct is, what the location is, and when it changed. And typically, we'll field, I don't know, dozen to half dozen to a dozen calls of those nature because people have been used to voting at one location and it changed, and so we just provide them with the information of the new location. Nelson, you got anything?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong. These polling locations have been approved by the commissioners already. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that happened previous to the large outbreak of COVID-19. Is that
Actually,
right?
your sheet. Oh, okay. I didn't give you the one that's signed. I don't remember when the commissioners approved it. I'll say probably at your last March meeting. That's my guess.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, if I remember correctly, March 24th, I think, or 23rd was the first day that the county kind of locked down at that point. So I believe it was just prior to that, if I remember properly.
The reason why I'm asking is because I have some serious concerns regarding having all of these polling locations open to the public and inviting people to these places where the spread of COVID-19 is very possible. We need to look at how some of our other neighboring counties have handled this. They have reduced their number of polling locations drastically. For example, Allen County, I believe, had a previous polling locations of like 113, and they've reduced theirs down to 25. Monroe County from 60 down to like something like 6 or 7. There have been significant changes since the last time the commissioners met and approved all of these to now. A lot of people have died of COVID-19. We're all very well aware of social distancing and interactions. And so I think we need to take a better look at this and the possibility of reducing these locations. Furthermore, I think there is a significant concern regarding having volunteers staff these locations. As you know, many of the people that volunteer at these locations are older individuals who are more susceptible to contracting COVID-19. And so I think we're duty bound to try to combine more of these to reduce the number from 83 locations. And another concern that I have too is, again, where are we at with the number of staffings currently? I mean, have both the Democratic County Party and the Republican County Party provided you with all their volunteers list yet?
I've got pretty much most of the Democrats.
Okay.
I don't have all the Republicans.
And obviously we need those. And on top of that, the staffing situation from both sides, I believe your comments at the last commissioners meeting when you approached them was the fact that we haven't heard from a lot of these religious buildings, these churches. Where have you heard from them?
I have not called everyone because I know Diane at the commissioner's office is going to try and insist me. I don't have time to do that.
Sure. I understand.
She's going to try and make some calls and find out.
But you indicated that we're about a month away, and we still don't know what there's still too much uncertainty regarding volunteers, regarding the possibility of even using some of these locations that have already been previously approved. I would suggest that we reduce the number of the polling places, maybe just not use the religious buildings since we haven't even heard back. That way we have a more stable, more definitive list of the places that we can use. That would then reduce the number of poll workers that we would need as well.
Okay, well, I will address that because I did look into that probably 2 weeks ago. Like I said earlier, our machines were programmed before the COVID-19 took place. In fact, I believe we were one of the last counties that microvote programmed before everybody was locked down. I discussed this with our representative. He cannot go back and reprogram the machines. Anybody that's familiar with the machines, they are programmed to the precinct. When you come in to the Methodist Church, all the people on the ballot that pertain to that precinct are on that ballot. In order to combine precincts, you would have to, for instance, if you take 4 machines in the Methodist Church and put them at the Civic, and let's say we put 10 precincts in there, you would have to have each machine programmed to that precinct. Every machine would have to have all the precincts programmed on it. So if you came in from the east side of town or you came in from the north side of town, you could vote there, and we would just plug in your precinct and your ballot would come up. Right now, each precinct, every machine has a precinct. Some of them have 2 on it. It cannot be reprogrammed. You can't reprogram the machines. Therefore, the machine for that precinct is for that precinct only. If you are voting at a different precinct, you have to go there. I don't know how else you could do it. The only other thing you might be able to do a little bit of is combine some of the precincts in a big gymnasium and maybe put 3 or 4 or 5 in one location. But still, you have each machine programmed to that precinct, and you have the workers that take care of that precinct. So it's not going to reduce your workload. Your workers are still going to be the same. So you could reduce the location, but the number of people at that location are still the same.
Right. And just to clarify, so what you're saying is that if we wanted to combine, say, a greater Powerhouse Church of God with an Elston building, you're saying that all of the machines would have to have all of those precincts on it. And you're saying that because of the fact that it would create an additional workload to add and it's not necessarily reprogramming. It sounds like it's adding more programming to an already existing machine, right? You'd have to add.
Literally, they would have to go through and reprogram all the machines. As you know, we're testing right now. We can't go in and do that. So
it's not possible to, at least in your opinion, it's not possible to.
It's not possible in the opinion of Microvote.
Well, then this is where I take issue because we have other counties that have been able to do this.
Well, if you check some of those counties, a lot of those counties are vote centers. We are not a vote center county. St. Joe County is a vote center. They reduced it. Because they're vote centers. In a vote center, all the precincts are there.
I understand.
So you can reduce because they're all there anyway. In a precinct-led vote county, you cannot. You are voting in the precinct.
Allen County is a microvote county that reduced theirs significantly down to 25 polling locations.
Are they a vote center county?
I believe so, but you're saying that the problem is
you can do it in a vote center county. You cannot do it in a precinct.
But you're saying that the issue is reprogramming the machines.
It is.
So I don't understand why you can move the location and combine them and reprogram the machine before June 2nd.
Because you have to, when you put all the machines if you move 5 precincts into one location, all 5 precincts, if you have 40 machines, they all have to be programmed with all 5 precincts. You don't have precinct 1, 2, 3. You have all of them have the 1, 2, 3, all of them. And the machines are programmed per precinct right now. To put them together, all the machines would have to have all the precincts on all the machines.
And you're saying that you've had this conversation with Microvote and they've explained to you that that's not
It's
possible.
way past the timeline for that.
Okay. So
they programmed our machines mid-March. We are testing machines right now. We're getting ready to have our absentee voting and early voting, and it takes them 2 days to program the machines. Right. It's way past that time.
Thank you, Ms. Kroback. And so then my question becomes, if it's not possible to reprogram these machines and combine these locations, isn't it that much more important then that we have a stronger presence in mail-in ballots so that we reduce the number of people that come to these locations?
I never said we shouldn't. I'm just saying it's too late in the process.
But I'm just asking your opinion. Isn't it then more important to be able to push this mail-in ballot opportunity?
I wouldn't say yes or no to that. I know there are a number of people that wouldn't vote by mail, absolutely will not vote by mail. They want to vote in person. So we've put on our website the availability of them to do so. There's options for them. They've had a whole entire extra month to do it. Instead of stopping in April, they've had this whole 4 more weeks to do so, and they have been doing it. So I am not here to tell the voter how to vote, and I won't tell a voter they have to vote in person or they have to vote by mail. That's their decision.
Sure, and I'm not asking.
I think the option should be there either way.
And I'm not asking that we tell them how to vote. I'm just saying that we should make it easily accessible for them to request a ballot.
I think it is easily accessible. It's on the website.
Well, we'll get to that point, I think, in the next.
We will.
Mr. Chair, I'd still move that we reduce the polling locations from the 84 and we present it to the commissioners for their consideration. I'd ask that we reduce each of the religious buildings, such as churches, to reduce the numbers, and then that way we can reduce also the amount of staff that we have to use to accommodate those polling locations.
Mr. Pichardo, I think Kathy has adequately explained to at least to me that what you're requesting is an impossibility.
Okay, I'm still asking that I'm still making my motion. I would still like a vote so it's on the record.
Okay, so your motion is exactly what? Kathy, could you please make sure you get this down?
You want me to restate it?
Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I move that we reduce the polling locations by, do you want me to state each of the locations?
No.
Okay. I'd ask that it be reduced to every building that is not a church or a place of religious activity, which we haven't heard from as per your discussion.
So again, just to clarify what your motion is, you're moving that we recommend to the commissioners an absolute impossibility.
I don't think it's an impossibility because other counties have done it.
But you're not basing that upon the information that was given to you by Ms. Kroback.
I still am making my motion, and I would like to vote on it.
All right, having a motion on the table, and could you please repeat it, Kathy?
Well, hopefully I got it.
Yeah.
He moved to reduce the polling locations to every building, not a church or a religious location. Is that correct?
Yes, and to clarify, it's for the purposes of making sure that we have adequate staff and protect the voter from the spread of COVID-19.
Having a motion, is there a second? There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Having no second, the motion dies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next item on the agenda is the status of absentee applications, and I think that this is going to be a discussion here.
If I have your permission, can I share some thoughts of the commission as to why we passed a resolution, a motion, and I can give you some explanation before you discuss this, if it's okay.
I think, Dr. Corrin, thank you for coming today. I think we are well aware of what the commissioner's resolution was, and we're prepared to discuss that with regards to some of the options that are out there. I understand that part of the discussion is going to be, in my understanding, sending out absentee applications to all registered voters in LaPorte County. I understand that there is now another one that's on the table with regards to sending out a postcard. And unless there's something further you'd like to add, I'm hesitant to, because if you're able to speak here, then I've got to let everybody else get up and speak as well at the same time.
It's up to you.
With that being said,
yes.
I guess, I mean, we can make the decision as a board are we to have the public have the opportunity to speak here at this point of the agenda, or do we hold and wait till public comment?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think it makes sense to do it now because it keeps the points easily fresh in someone's mind. And I would like to hear what our commissioners, as the executive branch of this county, I think he has the right. I think he should be able to speak to us directly. And I think his comments are going to help us make a better decision.
Kathy, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have a problem with them speaking on it. I would like to limit it to 3 or 4 minutes, not go on and on and on about it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I believe that's a reasonable restriction. Okay, so with regards to the status of absentee applications item that's on the agenda, Dr. Cora, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this privilege. I want to, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and the reason I'm here is not only because I'm a commissioner, but because I'm a physician. I just want to share that with you. And, when we are dealing with a disease, either we can prevent it or we can treat it. Unfortunately, we do not have a treatment for this disease. The best way is to prevent it. And the best way to prevent is by social distancing and by improving personal hygiene. I believe we should give every voter the opportunity to vote, but also to protect themselves and also to protect the poll workers by reducing the in-person voting. Obviously, we are not telling anybody who wants to vote in person not to vote in person. I mean, it's their choice. But I think by making it easy for people to vote by mail, I think we will be reducing the risk. Life is all about managing risk. Medicine is about managing risk, and life is about managing risk. And if we can manage this risk, if we can get the job done by reducing the risk, I think it is a good thing. I'm looking at numbers every day from our county and from our state. The trend of newly reported cases is not going down. It's either staying flat or sometimes it bumps up, goes down, bumps up, but we have not seen a clear-cut trend or that it's going down. And some of the models that I have seen are predicting that the peak is going to happen 2-3 weeks from now. So we have a problem that we need to address, and we need to minimize the risk. And the reason myself and my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Matias and Commissioner Muzinski, decided on adopting that motion was because we want to make sure that we take care of public health and public safety, and because that's a key priority. And that's the reason why we unanimously passed a resolution to make it easy for mail-in ballots. By sending everybody an application. And even if that is not possible, maybe a postcard. The point here is, how do we make it easy for people to vote by mail? And I want to thank Diane in our office. They really worked hard on improving this county website. They did a phenomenal job. And so that's a good thing. But over the last month, I've been doing telemedicine. And when we deal with telemedicine, when we are dealing with when I'm dealing with elderly patients, not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has a smartphone either, because I deal with it every day. And a lot of people just have a regular phone. A lot of people have a flip phone. Sometimes they just have a landline. And not everybody gets a newspaper. And so I think if we do our job by making them aware that there is a risk, especially if you're elderly, in going and voting in person, and then this is sending a card at least, and sending them, these are the choices, and this is how you can get a mail-in application, and you can send it and get the ballot, and that way you can participate in a democracy. I think that's a good thing to do. So that's all I'm here to request that. And by the way, I've been talking to Ms. Kroback several times, and I thank you for everything you're doing. And this is a tough job, and I recognize that we are here to help you. The commission is here to help you. The council is here to help you. And there are a lot of people here to help you. I spoke to Darlene, I spoke to Diane, I spoke to Lynn Spivak, who has done this several times, and they're all willing to step up and help you in whatever because if you get hundreds of requests for applications for ballots, it's going to take a large number of people to mail those ballots, and then a large number of people to receive those ballots, and then a large number of people to count those. So there are a lot of people ready and willing to help. I just wanted to let you know that we are here to help you, and hopefully this will help facilitate your discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Dennis Matheny, 6757 West 450 North, Michigan City. I appreciate what the doctor says. He is a doctor. I appreciate Mr. Nelson there on letting us speak. But I have to say that I'm in opposition to what the doctor said. First of all, if you want to protect people, doesn't the governor say spread them out? So by having 83 spots, you spread them out. If you go to 43, you condense them. So you're saying the exact opposite of what they're saying us to do. How do we know that 2 weeks from now is going to be the high? Well, my opinion is going to be 3 weeks. His opinion might be 5 weeks. All we're doing is operating on opinions, because the more people that are tested, the more it's going to show it's going up or down. So I don't want to get into that. But my whole thing is, I've said 20 years ago, I want polling centers. I want voting centers. Nobody in the commissioner's office would allow it. I want voting centers because you can condense it. You don't have to find as many people on Democrats or Republican side. That's my opinion. I support what you do. I appreciate everything you're doing. You're working hard to go through this stressful period. Now, later on in public comment, I've called the governor's office and I've called the Indiana Election Commission. I have the numbers for their 2020 -37, which tells you what they tell you you have to do. So other than that, thank you very much, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matheny.
My name is Don Briggs. I'm from 300 Madison Street, Michigan City, Indiana. Thank you all for doing what you're doing. It's you've got a crisis on your hand. Thank you especially, Mr. Machado, for stepping up into this crisis. Wow, that takes some courage. Hey, I'd like to submit some documents. In the interest of time, I'll just submit some written documents. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
File stand.
I'd also like to expand a little bit on the gravity of the election and what some of us want to do exactly what you're doing, what you propose to do, what Dr. Kaur has proposed to do. Get all those, get everybody,
There you go.
get some information out of these folks. Two of us, Laura Henderson and I, have been working on getting out some information to the voters. We've come up with a cost-effective way, okay, to mail out to folks in our own precincts some information. It's all amateur, okay? It hasn't been reviewed by anybody. The backside is, well, the font is pretty small, and I had to go to a tiny URL to encode the URL a little more efficiently. If you do this, if you get these applications out to every voter, that part goes away. What you're left with is what we've written here is a preview of the instructions they'll get when they get their ballot. Okay, I'd like to see that go away. We're about to spend a couple of $100 each to make this happen. That's how much that's how forcefully our sense of civic duty and the gravity of this election drive us to come here and do these things. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Yeah. Is it all this?
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street, Michigan City. We already have in place where people can fill out applications online or come in here and request these applications if they want to vote early. I don't have no idea. I know this is not going to be free to send out postcards and mail this stuff out. I think it's a waste of money and it's a waste of time. We already have it in place where people, any one of us, can request a ballot if we want to vote early. With the last few elections that I've been participating in, I wouldn't even suggest anybody that's with me to even turn in a ballot under the current leadership that we have right now. But I think it's a waste of money and we should just keep it going and let's get this over with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
Faye Moore, 515 Grace, Michigan City, Indiana.
I'm sorry, your last name?
Moore. I'm a precinct person, and I also deliver Meals on Wheels. And so what we have done for LaPorte is presented an absentee ballot to our clients, Meals on Wheels. So far, we've gotten 32 of them back for absentee ballots because most of them are home confined and disabled or whatever. So that's one thing that can be done. Different organizations or whatever that know who their clients are and people that are disabled to get them, a ballot so they can get them to their people. The other thing I've done is sent electronically to some of the churches in Michigan City the absentee ballot since it changed for this year, to let them know that it changed so they could get them out to their parishioners. And that happened before the pandemic. So some of them might have gotten them, some of them might not have, because it was right before we got where we had to stay in. Is when I sent those out to the churches, and I tried to do it before so they can get it for Sunday services. So I don't know how many of the churches actually receive the absentee ballots, but like you said, you have been receiving quite a few absentee ballots. So I would hope that was part of that effort.
Thank you.
The ballot application. The ballot application.
I understood what you were saying.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joanne Enquist. I live at 3001 Maple Street in Michigan City, Indiana, and I am representing the League of Women Voters of LaPorte County. And I also have contacted our state organization. They realize that I am here and they are supportive of what I'm about to say. The question of whether we should mail applications to all registered voters of LaPorte County is one that I am eager to respond to, and so is the League of Women Voters. We all know the concerns. We know that our county has a high minority population and large elderly population. It appears that both of those groups are predisposed to the deadly virus. However, I believe with careful planning, we can both encourage voter participation and protect voters. Hopefully by the fall, more people than ever will follow through with what I consider their sacred right in a democracy. I can assure you that our LaPorte County League will do all we can to help prepare voters for voting by mail. Transition will not be easy for some. Relating names on one page to numerals on another page could be confusing. The League of Women Voters will do all that we can. The League of Women Voters of LaPorte County, we can add a video to our website. We can use that information on Vote 411. Both our website and Vote 411 are sites popular to voters and becoming more popular as we get word out, but we've been doing it for years. Voters must also be given extra assurances during this time for the need of physical distancing. They must be assured that their vote will count. According to new research done at Stanford University, and in fact just received last month, mail-in voting does not favor one political party over another, nor does it invite more frequent incidents of fraud. We can also share data from states that have been using mail-in voting for years. They are very proud of their records. I want to end by quoting my national organization, the League of Women Voters of the United States, LWVUS. That states, the League of Women Voters officially calls on all states, U.S. territories, and the District of Columbia to expand no-excuse absentee voting and mail-in ballots for the duration of the 2020 election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. just as a point here, Kathy just passed me a note. For those of you that are in attendance today in person, there's a sign-in sheet, I believe, down here somewhere. If you could please sign in at some point during the meeting so that we can make sure your names are spelled correctly, et cetera, and we know who was all here. Thank you.
My name is Jeanette Nagu, 3739 Lexington Road, Michigan City. I want to thank all of you for the work you have done to see that our elections run smoothly. This is an extremely unique situation, beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I am also in that very vulnerable group, being 80 years old and having a heart condition. I will definitely be voting through the mail, and I want to mention that in our county, the number of people that get newspapers and can find out changes in what is occurring is very limited. I don't get a newspaper anymore, even though all my life I have had one. Because of the limited communication, even letting people know about the absentee ballot process is difficult. Therefore, I strongly endorse the decision that we mail out the absentee ballot information, and with that mailing, let them know what deadlines occur, because that information does not get to all of our voters. So I urge you to support that effort. And I also realize that Kathy will have a phenomenal problem in getting all that information out, which has to be done quickly, and getting the ballots counted. And I am volunteering to help in any way, and I think that that problem needs to be addressed immediately if we are going to take that action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dalia Gigas. I live at 106 Elmwood Drive in Michigan City. And I also want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing. It's not an easy time. My daughter had the opportunity to vote in Wisconsin this last primary. And, that was the election where people had to, it was disastrous planning, and a lot of people had to put themselves or their family members at risk. So I also support what Jeanette just said, that please mail everybody information on the absentee voting. We do not read the papers. I had the same comments on my paper as well. Newspapers are not really that widely read any longer, and please don't depend on social media for letting people know on what's going on with the elections, because I don't even want to get into that. So I just think mailing people an application with clear instructions on how to do it would really ensure that more people got to vote and vote safely. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laura Henderson, 510 East 9th Street, Michigan City.
I didn't get it. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
Laura Henderson.
Okay, thank you.
510 East 9th Street, Michigan City. I again want to thank all of you for the difficult job you're doing. And I want to support Dr. Cora and a lot of other people's recommendation that we do mail out the applications to people, because it's not a good thing to have to risk your life to vote. And that's the case in this time. And also it does improve voter participation, which we know is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cora Lawn, 386 Evanston Road, Kingsford Heights. I'm a precinct person for 30-some years, consistently. I have been the chair of the Republican Party at different times to fill in for the chair. I am also now currently the vice chair of the Republican Party. I appreciate the fact that they would like to make it so we have lesser places to vote. Just think of it this way. Take a bunch of dust, throw it on the floor. Now, if you take that dust and sweep it all together, you have a compound amount of dirt, correct? The concentration is going to be so great if you reduce the amount of voting places. Say you have 500 people, but you have 5 of them with 500 people. Oh, no. Let's just put them all together. Now you got 2,500 people together. Do you not think that germ is going to have a greater concentration if it happens that way? That's my only thought on this subject of trying to move our voting locations together. Thank you.
Any other comments on this issue here with regards to the mailing out of some type of information, whether it is a postcard with the instructions on it? I believe, Nelson, did you provide this, or was this?
Yeah, I just, before we move on to that, Mr. Volz, I think we should, these individuals, I looked at these letters, they didn't have an opportunity to be here to present their position. Could I read them into the record?
Sure.
Okay. This is from President Wesley Scully of the NAACP LaPorte County branch. He states, "Dear Election Board and County Commissioners, the primary method of preventing the spread of the coronavirus is creating social distance. This abruptly changes the normal interactive and assembly-driven process of casting a ballot. It is important to consider first the safety and health of all voters by expanding opportunities to vote by mail for all elections this year. Implementing this critical common sense step is necessary as warnings of a potential worse second wave coming and no vaccination readily available. The NAACP strongly advises the Commission and the Election Board to also consider other factors that may impact voters, especially during this time. Many voters are more likely to have moved residencies and are experiencing homelessness. Disabled people who need special accommodations when voting may also be put at a disadvantage if they cannot receive the assistance they need when voting through the mail. While the option should be readily available, no one can force mail-in voting or home visits by an unknown third party. The best way to ensure they can exercise their right to vote is to keep in-person voting locations open for those that require it. Special consideration should also be given to ensuring that mail-in ballots are also accounted for, including absentee ballots, with voters requesting ballots to be sent to a different address. This should be followed by verification that the ballot was received by the Election Board. Also, the Commission and the Election Board should consider developing same-day voter registration options in order to ensure those who are not registered because of the impact of COVID-19 have the opportunity to get registered. These considerations will help to eliminate the questionable registration issue that happened during last year's election. The NAACP also urges the Election Board to create initiatives to educate voters on new voting policies to ensure there is information readily available to the public about the new policies for voting. Educating voters on new voting policies by using all media sources, including mail, traditional mail, social media, website, radio, and other media platforms, is crucial to turning out the votes. Implementing educational initiatives will help to ensure that voters are aware of any changes that have been made in the voting policies in LaPorte County, Indiana. Voting is a primary concern of the NAACP. That requires full transparency in order to ensure that voters' rights and ballots are properly counted and accounted for. The NAACP wants the Commission and the Election Board to understand there is nothing more essential than voting. Remember that transparency and access to information about voting are just as important as access to the ballot to vote. Sincerely, Wesley Scully, President, NAACP, LaPorte County Branch 3061. The second one, I think these were provided by Mr. Briggs, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
The second one is from Miss Nancy Moldenauer. I wish I could be there in person, yet I am under stay-at-home orders due to my age and my spouse being a cancer survivor of just over 2 years. Therefore, someone else may be reading my statement or hopefully submitting it in written form. As the elected chair of the 23rd Precinct in Michigan City, I am very concerned about having a team to cover our voting place on Election Day. Already, I have been contacted by 2 of my 3-person team that they think they should not be serving due to either their age and or underlying medical conditions. Mailing the option of absentee ballots to all of our registered voters in LaPorte County and encouraging them to do so during these challenging times of our coronavirus pandemic would certainly give voters the option of voting early and staying safe. After seeing what happened in Wisconsin with voters so determined to vote that they risked their health and well-being, I am most concerned about keeping our residents safe and at the same time enabling them to still vote. I firmly support with great confidence that the option of voting by absentee ballot will ensure all registered voters, regardless of their necessity to obey stay-at-home orders, whether by our elected officials or by their personal care physicians, are able to be observed. As far as not having enough poll workers to cover all of the neighborhood polling places on Election Day, may I make the suggestion that voting polls could be set up at the 4 fire stations in Michigan City, and that a similar plan possibly be implemented in other centralized places in LaPorte County, like they have done in Springfield Township so successfully. Nancy Moldenauer, she states her email, her phone number, and her address. And then there's a petition, I think, that Mr. Briggs presented with his position, and it is signed by 7 individuals. I can't read their signatures. Furthermore, Mr. Chair, I am aware of a petition going around the county titled "The People Want Absentee Ballots for LaPorte County," and I can just explain to you all that within 24 hours, over 97 people have signed that petition. So I just wanted to share that since we're discussing this during this time. And I have further comments. I don't know if we're still holding it open to the public, but when appropriate, I would like to make my comments.
I think you can go ahead and do that because I don't believe anybody else from the public has anything else further to add. So public comment on this specific agenda item is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask that this be made a part of the agenda because it is incredibly important that we help stop the spread of COVID-19. A logical solution, as many have indicated, would be to invite LaPorte voters to submit absentee ballot requests by mailing out to each voter and household the form to make such a request. By doing this, voters will have the opportunity to vote and to remain at home away from public gatherings such as polling places. By now, we are all very familiar with the importance of social distancing and the importance of limiting our social interactions. By staying home, we will avoid having to wait in lines, come in contact with individuals that may be handing you things, that may be asking for you to touch items that may be contaminated. We may have voters who come to polls that may not show any signs of having COVID-19, but that still may be able to spread the disease to an elderly voter who may be at serious risk if they contract COVID-19. We, as the election board, have the duty to facilitate the voting process. We have the ability to help voters stay home and still allow voters to cast a vote. This request is not something outlandish or revolutionary. Other counties have been implementing plans to reduce the number of polling locations and implement vote by mail, or at least the opportunity to make a request for a ballot by mailing in an absentee ballot request to the clerk's office. For example, Marion County has opted to send out a mailer and a request for each household so that the voters can make the request for an absentee ballot. Monroe County has elected to send out a letter with details as to how to vote absentee, where and how to make a request for an absentee ballot. And this is key right here. The Republican chair of the election board in Monroe County said this. His name is Mr. Hal Turner, and I quote, "We're really encouraging people to vote from home. The absolute safest way people can vote in a COVID-19 pandemic is to vote from home," end quote. This should not be a partisan issue. It should not matter if you're red, blue, green, whatever. We need to come together and beat the spread of COVID-19. Now, there
will be an opportunity for public comment later on in the meeting.
There are several issues to address regarding the concerns regarding time, cost, man or woman power, but I think that we can address those and we can talk about each of those issues to be able to get this done. You know, I addressed Mr. Matheny regarding his opinion position. As of April 27th, and this is not an opinion, 866 Hoosiers have died from the complications of COVID-19. 16,000 Hoosiers have tested positive. We're asking first responders who are sacrificing their health and lives to battle this thing on the front lines to continue sacrificing it. So it's on us to help them do all that we can to get over this. And that is not an opinion. That is a fact, the fact that people are dying dying from this, and we have the opportunity to be able to stop it. And if we can't figure this out, if we're telling nurses, police officers, firefighters, EMT, all those folks, if we're telling them we can't do it, we owe them to make sure that this gets worked out. And if we don't, I believe it's a shame on us.
Order, please. Thank you. Kathy, you have any comments?
Isn't that we haven't looked at this, because we certainly have. The timeline is not such that it's doable, guys. Everyone, and I certainly appreciate people wanting to get an application to vote in the mail. Absolutely. Me, myself, I would not want that, but everybody has the right. And if they want to vote by mail, that's what their right is. The timeline, folks that look at this, in all due respect to Nelson, he doesn't understand the process that goes into this, and I don't think most people do. The time that's invested, how many applications and how much it costs and how long it takes to print. Right now, you're looking at Monday. If we were to go forward with this, Monday would be the 4th. We would not get most of the supplies until Friday. We have to have them printed. Somebody needs to make the labels. We need postage. We need ballots, or we need applications. Somebody needs to put them together. It's a mass mailing. It takes lots of people. We've looked at this. Believe me, we have looked at this. The timeline does not allow for this to happen successfully. What's going to happen is, if we were to do this, people will be getting their applications by the beginning of the following week, not next week, the beginning of the following week. They literally have 4 days to get those signed and get them back in here. God knows what happens to the Postal Service. They have to be here by Thursday, the 21st. I think it's doing a very injustice to the voter to do it at this time, and we have made it available to them, an application online. It's there. They can call my office. They can call voters registration if they have to, and they can send them down to the absentee board. The board is working every day. We got 4 people right now. Next week we're going to 6. There's people down there working. They can send it out, make a phone call, call my office, call anybody in the county. They get transferred over. The application is online. The state also, this last week, Monday or Tuesday, put an application online at the state site where you can actually go in. It's a fillable application. You sign it, fill it in, sign it, and then in the morning, we get all the applications sent to us in a mass email, and we process. There's a lot of opportunity, and I know that some people don't have computer. I do know that. That's why I get a lot of calls every day, and we mail, and when I mail out, if I do mail some, or they do mail them from the absentee room, we mail more than one, in case there's somebody in the neighborhood that might need one. But I'm not against it. Please understand, I'm not against it. The timeline is not doable at this time. It's setting up for failure, because I don't know how you can possibly get those back. The fear would be that people would fill them out and get them back after May 21. And then who's going to call all these people and tell them that their application didn't make it back in a timely manner? And anybody that would say do this doesn't understand the process. Believe me, anybody in this room that understands the process will probably agree with me. And I don't even know if Andrew understands totally the process. And he's been on the board for a long time. I didn't until I started running it. That's my comment. I don't know how it's doable, and I don't know what you do after the fact to let the people know who sent it in after the deadline, because there's going to be hundreds of them coming in after the 21st. And who's going to do that? This is my comment.
Nelson, you want to address something right away, or
you want to make comments?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you want to make comments, go ahead. But I do have some follow up on that.
go ahead and follow
Okay.
up. But the one thing I would like Kathy to speak on after you follow up is my understanding is there's a logistical issue as related to this as well. Correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'll say regarding the possibility about the time issue. Ms. Kroback, at the last commissioners meeting, I think you're on record saying that you have no problem sending these out. Is that not correct?
I did say that. I don't have a problem sending them out. I told them at the meeting that it's expensive, very expensive, $50,000 worth of expense, and there's a timeline issue. The timeline is a big issue.
At the actual commissioners meeting, I think that was April 22nd, you said that you didn't have any issue sending them out.
Well, no, but I said the same thing then that I said today.
Okay. Regarding the cost, I have a quote from Hawkins Printing where they indicate that it's a number much less than the $50,000 you just suggested. With sending labels out, I'm sorry, without labels, one side of some type of printout, like a postcard, would be closer to the neighborhood of $15,000. Are you suggesting that it would be $50,000 to send the actual request ballot?
I don't know what you're talking about, a postcard. I never talked on a postcard. I'm talking about sending an application to every registered voter.
So the application is what you're saying is much
Correct.
more expensive. Okay. Thank you. The other comment that I wanted to address is a lot is being said about how everyone has access and everyone is able to, it's readily accessible. I take a position against that because of the fact that there are a number of individuals in this county that don't have a broadband internet that they're able to access some of these applications and things. Not everyone has the same opportunity that people in this room have. Like Dr. Cora was saying, there may not be an individual who has a computer or a phone, or gets the newspaper regularly. So that's all the more reason as to why a request for a ballot should be sent. And as far as the time, we have until May 21st to receive it. I think it's doable. It's not easy. It's quite difficult. And I think with the proper help, I think the clerk's office could get this done. And the other issue too is the commissioners and the council have vowed to help us resolve this. And we need to be able to work together with them in order to get it done. And if it's a matter of funding, the county council may have the opportunity to have a special meeting to provide that funding. The commissioners have said that they can do anything and everything that they will in order to get this done. And we keep waiting. I mean, the last commissioners meeting where a lot of this was discussed already was April 22nd. We've lost over close to a week over this. I think if we are going to do it, we need to do it now.
Well, first of all, it's not a commissioner's decision. It belongs to the Board of Election in LaPorte County. They could sit there all night and say, let's do it, but the board has to approve it. I ran numbers as they asked me to do, and we have to order product. We have to run applications. We have to order labels. Somebody has to go into the SVRS and print every single one of the labels for every registered voter in LaPorte County. That takes time. We have to order envelopes, and then there's postage. Then somebody has to fold them, put them in the envelope, and mail them out. As I said, it would probably, between the ordering of the product and getting them out, would be an entire week trying to get that done. And again, people who make this kind of recommendation don't know the process that goes on to get this done. Then on top of it, and we have looked at this, when it does come back in time, I tried to do a rough estimate on how many we would get back in a day from this point forward. So I figured we have probably 18 days, not minus the Sunday. We still get mail from Saturday, but we'll minus the Sunday. We have 18 days. If we got 200 back, roughly you're talking 3,400 ballots. That's 3,400 ballot cards, secrecy envelopes, 3,400 ballot envelopes to return the ballot in, 3,400 envelopes to mail them out in. Then you got postage in both the inner envelope and the outer envelope. And then all the paperwork that goes on inside the envelope with the instructions and the voters' rights and everything that's included. We have to print all that. We have to order the envelopes. We did order envelopes yesterday, and we have enough as we stand right now, we hope. We can't get those envelopes until the 16th of May. That's how long it takes. Our supplier does not have any because he's supplying the state of Indiana also. We went through Hawkins just to get an estimate. He can do it for us in one day, but he can't get the envelopes for 2 weeks. So there's issues with supply and getting the paperwork together, and people don't understand that. I just don't want to be set up to fail. We can assist people in trying to get an application. We're doing that right now. We're sending them out like crazy. But to mail a mass mailing to everybody is not only expensive, I think it's almost undoable. We don't have the supplies to do it.
Well, I appreciate the discussion that is going on, and thank you for the members of the public that got up and took the opportunity to address this board with regards to your concerns. I can see it on both sides. I don't think it is a partisan issue. It has nothing to do with red or blue. What it has to do with is providing individuals with the opportunity to vote in a manner in which they feel comfortable. And I understand the uncertainty that's out there is where we're going to be in a month with regards to the figures that were quoted. Have we flattened the curve, to use the general parlance? I don't know. I think there's a lot of unknowns out there. But I think that there is a middle road here that could at least provide prospective absentee voters with the information that they need in order to apply for an application. And in my mind, when we're talking about costs and we're talking about unavailability of product, to where we wouldn't even be able to provide for the regular absentee ballots that we get up until May 16th, I think perhaps the avenue to go here, and again, we can discuss it, but we've got to get through this meeting here at some point. I don't know who dropped this off here. This was sitting on the podium up here.
I think that was created by the commissioners to help us.
It was.
But Mr. Chair, before we move on that, I'd like to make a motion that we as the election board send out to each household in the county an absentee ballot request form. That's my motion, and I'd like a vote on it.
Okay, the motion is that an absentee ballot application form be sent out to every voter in LaPorte County. Having a motion, is there a second?
Guess somebody didn't listen. It's not doable.
So, no.
Not at this timeline.
Kathy, that's out of order.
I'm sorry.
Having a motion with no second, the motion dies. What I would like to provide as a potential additional motion or a discussion point here is the commissioners apparently have created what appears to be a postcard type document that provides information with regards to early absentee voting opportunities. And I think in general, I like it for a variety of reasons. Number one, it cuts down the cost. We're not providing any extra envelopes. We don't need to wait for envelopes to come in. We don't need to wait for a specific printing job to be done or whatever else. This is available to be done or farmed out to Hawkins or whomever at a relatively well, I'm not going to say relatively, at a substantial reduction in the cost that Kathy presented at the commissioners meeting. I looked it over. There are a couple of spelling errors and whatever else, and I think it would be important to include the fact that this is, and you want to talk about bipartisan. This is the LaPorte County Election Board and the county commissioners working together to provide the public with all of the information that they need in order to go through a voting process, meaning via an absentee application. If they're comfortable with that, that's what's available for them to do. I don't think that this is a situation, again, echoing what Kathy said, where we try and do the impossible. But I think that this is a solution here, especially considering under the time frame that we have.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to give some information regarding that postcard that you alluded to, I think there was a Hawkins printing quote that the commissioners received that it'd be about 15,000 with one side only without labels, and 15,000 a little over 15,000 with two sides without labels. So if there are some numbers if you are interested. The other point that I was going to make, this is exactly what Allen County has done, and I've talked to their election department. And just so that we have some rough numbers, they've spent about $18,000 on sending postcard mailer with specific information on how to ask for an absentee ballot request. Since they've started this, they've gotten over 17,000 requests. So I think this is a good opportunity to help induce the mail-in vote. It's still going to be a substantial. It's going to be substantial processing it all, as Ms. Kroback has stated.
Well, I think, and thank you, Nelson, for your comments. I think that processing aside, we have to deal with that anyway. And so, okay, we may have to hire more people to process the ballots that are received as they're received. If we wind up getting in a situation where we're deluged, then we're going to need to think on our feet there. But at that same time, then, that process can be initiated or can be conducted in a manner that wouldn't interfere with any of the duties on election day. And I understand we're going to get buried by this anyways. That's just the reality here. I think providing the information as indicated by your statistics would cause a spike, but I think we're capable of being in a position to deal with that if we choose to go this route of sending a postcard out. And with the understanding then that to 68,000 registered voters?
Well, we wouldn't send them we would have to run a report on the ones that already sent theirs back.
Right.
I don't understand what you're talking about, a postcard. I've not seen a postcard.
I think that's...
So that's basically this?
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly. Just already in form.
One thing I have a problem with this, and this was put unbeknownst to me on our county website over the night when I looked at it, and we thought that somebody would have told the clerk that they were doing this. But when you pull up the county website, and there's a scroll across the top, it says primary, vote by mail, whatever that scroll is. This says there, what is it? Keep it going.
That's it. You got to click on it.
It says June 2020 primary mail-in ballot. And then you click on that and you get this, which is basically, I guess, what they're doing a postcard. This is false advertising. It says you have 3 options to vote. It doesn't even say, no. When you go there, it says you have 3 options to vote. It doesn't even state that you get to vote in person if you want to. And excuse me, but, we encourage everyone to come and vote in person. If you don't want to, because of what's going on, you have certainly the ability to do one of these 3 things. It does not say on there that you have 3 options to vote, and one of them is in person. It just gives you these 3 options, and they're all by mail. So one of them says it's a vote by mail or travel board, you click on the application absentee ballot. The second one is the one that's tied with the computer down in Indianapolis. And that I have an issue with also. I think they fixed it. No, I didn't say that. I'm reading what they said on here. And we do have a travel board. And number 3, you can call in county offices and get one mailed to you. It doesn't say anything on here about voting in person. And it needs to say you can vote in person. And I've already had like 2 or 3 phone calls already today about that. Because somebody said to me, you can't make me do this. I want to vote in person. Quite frankly, that would be me. I would want to vote in person. So this needs to be fixed. You send this card out,
Well,
it's not...
okay, and I understand what you're saying here. And I guess then my response to that would be, then we fix the information that's provided.
This is
then.
incorrect.
I agree. I don't disagree with you. But we put together some type of postcard that has all of the options. You have 4 options to vote in the 2020 election. In person or these 3 avenues to pursue receiving an absentee application. I have no problem with that. I mean, that's the truth and that's the reality. And in fact, I would ask that the commissioners and maybe we need to get on the next commissioners meeting agenda to get this changed because it doesn't reflect accurate information.
The other thing on number 2, and I can tell you that she'll take care of it. When you go to the state site, and I don't even know what if it's through the Indiana Election Division or what, but you're directed to number 2, to the state site. You go on the state site, you go on there, you fill in all your information and do all that. And then at the bottom, it has a little bitty block that says to sign your application, click here. And what it does is it takes your signature from your registration record and puts it on your application. I don't know how many people miss that little thing that says sign here, but if you don't click that little box and it doesn't sign your application is void.
I think then that could be some information that could be included in this mailing, and especially if we're talking about, again, a reduction in cost, but with accurate information provided by how the election is going to be run in LaPorte County in 2020, whether or not you have the option to pursue voting by absentee through the application process, or you have the opportunity to vote in person at the precinct list that has already been designated and approved,
or early
voting. Absolutely. So there's 5 options then.
I think that this postcard is just it's not exactly what it needs to be sent. Obviously, we need to update this information and make it correct. I think it's just used as an example as to what can be
as
sent.
a demonstrative. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm going to make a motion that we have to recommend to the commissioners, or is this a decision that this board is making?
Diane's still here. Diane, may you come up to the podium, please, if you don't mind?
Because the reason why I'm asking this is I believe that we need to make a recommendation to the commissioners to do this, number 1. But then number 2, we need then the commissioners to go to the county council to provide allocation of funds for what this is, because this is an expenditure that's above and beyond any budget that was proposed for the clerk's office for this year. Diane?
Sir?
Do you have any comments to make?
No. Can't ask me to come up here. No.
I know that in speaking with you and in speaking with Darlene that this kind of got put together. Can you explain anything that you might know?
I believe that we were trying to help. I believe that I have a loud enough voice. Thank you. Sorry. I do. I believe that we were asked to help put something together because we did not want our county to have an episode as Milwaukee did, where I want to go to my polling location. I would rather also go to the courthouse and vote. But so that we're all not together, and I do have a couple of corrections, there's only 50 polling locations. A lot of them are doubled or tripled up. We have 50 locations.
83 precincts, correct?
Well, 92.
Well, 92, excuse me.
92 precincts. One is a non-voting, which is the Lake Michigan. If you're on a boat and you pull up and that's going to be your polling location, then we have 92. So we have 50 locations. I believe that Robert Chihoin from absentee voting wanted to make some comments as well. But this was just put together quickly. It was an idea, it was a thought, because we know we're under time constraint. We have actually 30 days longer than it has been really extended. So really, if people want to vote, they will figure out how. But the county has to also be there to maybe walk them along. It's kind of, I see both sides of it.
Well, and I agree, and I appreciate your comments. I think that it is a good idea to get some type of literature out, whether it's in the form of a postcard, which seems to be the most cost prudent measure, with the options that are available for voting in LaPorte County in the 2020 primary election.
But you also have to make sure that you guys have the supplies and the workers.
But I understand that.
You know, I mean,
but
if we're gonna tell people to vote by mail, we just have to. That's why we said that we supported her. The committee, and I apologize. I should not speak for my bosses, but I was taking the minutes, so I feel that I can say that at least that we support Kathy trying to do whatever, and you as the election board to do whatever we can to help people vote during this time. It's a strange time, but thank you. Sorry.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I know you've made a motion, but I have a suggestion. If we do send out some type of postcard mailer, I think we should state specifically what's going to be on that mailer and that it meets the approval of Ms. Kroback.
Well, I think what it needs to include is LaPorte County Election Board on there, not just LaPorte County Commission, number one.
Sure.
And number two, they have 3 items on there, 3 ways, 3 options. It's not 3 options, it's actually 5. And I think that if we include 5 options for voting in the 2020 LaPorte County primary election are voting in person, voting early in person, or then these 3 avenues that someone can procure an absentee ballot.
Sure. If I may, when I spoke to Allen County and got the information that was on their postcard, I'll share what theirs says. It has the following information. The title is Official Notice from the Allen County Election Board, which ours would be the LaPorte County Election Board. The second point is language that states, due to the COVID-19, your voting options may have changed. LaPorte County registered voters may vote by mail for the 2020 primary with no excuse. This is what theirs says, right? We recommend voting by mail. Please visit our website, and then it has the actual website where you can ask for the absentee ballot request form, which looks like what's on the screen there. Or it says call the election board or clerk, and then it lists the phone number, or email us directly. So it gives you the different ways to communicate in order to receive an absentee ballot request form.
You can have a real email to.
I appreciate the specific representation of what another county has done, but I think that, and again, now we're going to get bogged down in the details as far as what specific language needs to be included in it. If this is indeed in the motion, I would not be comfortable with language that LaPorte County Election Board recommends absentee voting by absentee. I think that the duty of this election board is to provide, and you've indicated in some of your comments earlier, is to provide voters with the most, with the most. I believe you indicated. Well, I know Dr. Corey indicated to protect themselves and the workers, but we provide them with the options to do so because, again, I'm not comfortable recommending to anybody a way they're going to exercise their constitutional right.
Sure, that's fair. I agree.
And that's every constitutional right that you have the right. You have the right to bear arms. You have the right. I mean, all of these things. I'm not going to recommend that you do that, but it's your right. And at some point, there needs to be some personal responsibility that comes in here, because as as many resources that are out there. At the end of the day, this is your personal decision as a voter what you want to do. But we will give you the information of what you can do, and then you make the decision.
Sure.
I think this is something that we can get accomplished in a reasonable amount of time. That it will provide value to the voter, and I think what also needs to be included in there is with regards to the absentee ballot language, that if the absentee ballot application is not received by the clerk by May 21st, it's invalid. And then if it's not received, meaning the actual ballot is not received by the clerk's office by noon on election day, it's invalid.
Yeah,
and because my concern is that if these counties that are pushing this vote by mail, and I know that there are other states that have moved in this direction. I understand that, and in my mind, at some point, maybe not in my lifetime, you'll be able to vote on a computer from your own home. I'm not commenting on the constitutionality of that or anything like that, but I think that that's coming. Now, with that being said, some people just aren't comfortable with it, number one. And then number two, people are not familiar with the process, so they just assume, okay, I mail my ballot in and it gets counted. Well, without providing the detailed information that I propose be included in this literature, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by saying, well, yeah, we recommend you vote by mail. Well, people have no idea how to do that. So,
if I may, I wasn't suggesting that should be added. I'm telling you that is what another county has put on their mailer. I do think that it needs to absolutely state the deadline, as you suggested, and I think it also needs to include the medium or the ability or how it is that you go about requesting the absentee request form. Those are the key points that I believe it needs to have.
So are we in agreement here then that it has to have those five? I mean, these are your options.
I think the vote in person needs to be first.
Absolutely. Because
this has nothing to do with the LaPorte County Commissioners. That should not even be on there. The people that run the election is the election board, not the commissioners. So it should say the election board. The deadline should be on the bottom in bold, May 21. It's in teeny-weeny little print, and people don't read that. Again, in the end, you guys can all vote to do this. Sounds like a great idea, and I'm supportive of people voting. Believe me, don't get me wrong. But in the ultimate end, it ends up falling on me. I'm going to have to process them. I'm going to have to get the workers. We have to have the people on election day. We have to get these out. I have to get the supplies. I have to get the postage. It all ends up on me. And at this point, this is a great idea, but it's a little late, I think. I think it's a little late. I already decided after today's meeting, because I had numerous press releases out already, I wasn't going to do another one until next week, to put a press release in all media, on the radio, paper, What's New LaPorte, about applying for an absentee ballot and how to get one.
Well,
I don't want to diminish the fact that people can vote in person. And we are going to spend, God knows how much money we do every single election time to run an election in a precinct with people working. So I
guess what I would offer then is whatever the press release winds up being, perhaps the press release can be tailored so that it would be sent out in the same way on the postcard, so we're not redoing the wheel. Because if you're going to issue a press release, I think the press release needs to contain that information. These are your 5 options for voting in the 2020 election.
Mr. Chair, I guess I might be missing the point, but why is it that we're giving them all of those different options? Isn't it the purpose of this is to give them the information on how to request an absentee request ballot? Because if that's the case, then you would reduce the amount of information that's on a postcard. I thought that the whole reason why this is being suggested is to tell the voter how it is that they can make the request for the ballot, not necessarily what each of their options are.
Well, in my mind, providing more information is better than providing less.
Well, I think it becomes a problem when you're trying to include all that information on a postcard.
Well, and when you send out something like this, it's assumed that you can't vote in person.
No, I disagree with that.
Well, I had 2 people already call me on it.
Well, what you're
I'm just
suggesting
telling
is
you.
information that's not actually going to be that's just a draft. That's not what we're actually sending. So that's
Actually, that's what the information that's on the website. And
right.
that's why I have concerns, is that the information that's on the website says you have 3 options.
Right, and I think we're all agreeing on the fact that it needs to be changed.
So then my mind would be the same information that's on the website is the information that's sent out for these individuals that we've discussed that don't have access to electronic media.
I just don't see how you're going to be able to fit it all on a postcard. Is this all the discussion?
Yeah. Sure.
Whatever you want to say, please send that.
Absolutely.
I'd make a motion if there's no more comments. May I, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I'd make a motion that since my request to send the absentee ballot request form didn't even reach a vote, I'd make another motion that we send out a mailer, specifically a postcard mailer, to each county household with the following information. 1, the title of official notice for the LaPorte County Election Board. 2, information regarding that what their options are. 3, that you include the date as to when the cutoff is for when an absentee ballot request form is received. And 4, you include each of the opportunities to be able to request an absentee ballot request form, which would be the website, calling the clerk or the election board, include the phone number, and maybe a direct email where a request can be made.
I would be willing to second that motion with the following amendment, that there are in fact 5 options to vote in the LaPorte County 2020 primary. Voting early in person, voting in person, and then the 3 ways to obtain an absentee ballot application.
I'd amend my motion just to clarify. You're saying those are the options, but not listing how to go about them, correct? Does that make sense?
Those are just the options.
Right. So you're saying include the language that you do have the following 5 options, such, and then all of the other language that I've included?
Yes.
I'd amend my motion to include that.
Having a motion on the table that's been amended with the consent of the original movant, I'll second that motion. Having a motion and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 2-1 vote. The ayes have it. I think we've about beat absentee ballot applications to death here. The next item on the agenda is the approval of salaries for poll workers. There's been no change, correct, Kathy?
No, I gave you a little list of the poll workers, what they make.
Okay, poll workers' salaries for the 83 polling locations, 83 precincts, 92 in some certain circumstances. The inspectors paid $200. The Republican judges paid $180. The Democratic judges paid $150. The Democrat and Republican clerk are both paid $150 each, and the sheriffs are $150 each. And again, all election board workers receive a $12 stipend for their meals. What winds up happening a lot of times is everybody pools their resources, and I don't know what's going to happen this year, but I mean, whatever. For facility and janitorial service, the rental is $50 for the location. The janitorial cost for cleanup is $25. The combo rental is $60, and janitorial is $35. And now I think there needs to be something addressed with regards here to the directive that came out from the Indiana Election Commission, which with regards to janitorial costs, a large quantity of PPE equipment is being provided by the state. Kathy has been in touch with a representative downstate with regards to that. So this will, again, ensure then that these polling locations and these precincts are adequately covered with regards to PPE. I would make a motion to approve the salaries for the poll workers for the 2020 election.
I'd second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Kathy, the next item on the agenda is the announcement of a new date with regards to CFA 1 candidate financial forms.
Yeah, I stated at the beginning of the meeting under the schedule calendar, but the CFAs are the cutoff period for your financial report due to my office. The cutoff is May 8th for your expenditures as a candidate for this primary cycle, and then due in my office at noon, May 15th.
Okay.
I had a number of people already file it on the old deadline, but
And the reason why the deadline has changed is because of the extension.
Right.
Okay.
And what is that new date? I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
What's the new date?
May 8th.
The deadline for reporting is May 8th, and it's due in my office noon on the 15th.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Next item on the agenda is discussion on use of 16 and 17-year-olds in this year's election. Specifically with regards to that, state law allows for it under Indiana Code 3-11.5-4-23. Specifically with the concerns that have been identified by voters registration from both parties, as well as in the concerns that have been expressed by some of the more seasoned poll workers that have contacted the clerk's office with regards to concerns about exposure or self-isolation or whatever else. It would be my position that we allow, pursuant to state law, which is generally, it's just not been the practice of LaPorte County because we wind up with enough volunteers. This year we may have a problem. And so I would make a motion that we formally encourage 16 and 17-year-olds taking place or taking the opportunity to volunteer to get paid. Well, I mean, you're getting paid, you're not volunteering. Granted, it's a long day, but you literally get to look behind the curtain. And I can't stress enough the importance of understanding how this process works and how this system works. And I think it's a marvelous opportunity, especially for these younger persons that may not have experienced such a thing in the past. So I would make a motion that we formally encourage the participation of 16 and 17-year-olds in this election.
Before we vote on that, I just have one quick question. How are we ensuring that there will be other more seasoned workers at these polling locations?
Well, there is poll worker training that will go on. And at the same time, again, on election day at Election Central, if any of these poll workers have questions, they contact Election Central. We can walk them through whatever problem they have.
Okay. So is there a possibility that some of these locations will be only run by 16?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. That's my concern.
I think our policy in the past is one
per, I think, was what we did, and maybe we could relax that this year. But it entirely depends upon the number of poll workers at the location, how many we can do that with, because if there's only if there's only four, we're not going to put two 16-year-olds sitting behind taking ballot counts.
That was my concern, and I agree with you. I think it's an excellent opportunity to really get younger people involved in this crucial aspect of our democracy. And because of that, I'd make the motion. Did you already make the motion? I'd second your motion to allow the 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds to participate.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Travel boards. Kathy, I understand that there has been some directives from downstate with regards to travel boards, and those are specifically contained in the Indiana Election Commission Order 2020-40, correct?
I have 2020-37, but here's an email.
All right, I've got that.
Did I send it to you? I sent an email down to the directors of the Indiana State Election Bureau downstate on travel board, because we had discussed it in the past. Nobody ever came back with a clear answer. yesterday from Angie Neusmeyer. This is basically what she told me, and it's basically the same as it was back in March when I first asked her. There will be no, per se, travel board with a machine. We are not using machines in the nursing homes, assisted living homes, any of those. What will happen is this is basically falls on the back of the party chair. So the party chairs from both parties get a list of, or we can assist them with that, of who in those facilities, and they normally call us or we'll call them. We get a list of people who want to vote. Then we send them an application. Somebody inside the facility will have to monitor this and walk it through. The county is not going to go to the facility this year. We always have gone in the past. We're not doing it. They don't want us in there, and we don't want to be in there. So the application will be mailed to whoever in each facility would like to vote absentee. They mail it back. We prepare a ballot for this person, and we call still a travel board, which is 2 people, Republican and Democrat, take these ballots out to the nursing home. We've already by that time contacted somebody on the inside. That person on the inside, by a contact from our party chairs, have picked a Republican and a Democrat to walk this through the process inside the facility. They would have to assist this person in filling out this ballot. I believe they would fill out a form affidavit like they normally do. When the ballots are complete and inside the envelope and everything's ready to be picked up, they would contact the travel board here in the absentee room, and we would go out and pick them up. It's being handled differently. We always did it on a machine before, but we're not doing machines. We're not going inside. We're relying on the staff on the inside to do our work for us.
Okay, so just to be clear, if I understand you correctly, that it is now the responsibility of the respective party chairs to work with the assisted living facility or what have you that is on lockdown to figure out who is or who would be the potential nominee to serve on the inside.
Correct.
And then it gets delivered through
and it has to be a Democrat Republican,
right?
Just like it normally would be.
Okay, so it's just an extension of what the travel board used to be. There.
Correct.
Okay.
We just drop off and then we pick up.
Okay. And you've communicated that information with the respective party chairs?
I have not yet, because if you notice, I just got my answer last night.
Oh, I see. Well, party chairs, if you're listening, looks like you got more work to do. Okay. That's all for new business. Other business. Kathy?
I don't have anything else.
Nelson?
The only thing I would like to say is thank you, Andrew, for being willing to work with me and to live up to your promise that you made to me at the beginning when I voted for you to be chair. I think it's incredibly important that we give this information to the voter. And thank you for supporting me in that.
No, we're coming to public comment. Public comment.
I'm sorry. I thought we were on board member comments. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Pretend that happened under board member comments.
My name is Roberta Hartz, 1507 Monroe. I'm the chief deputy in the clerk's office. I could say so much. My main question is who's paying for these postcards? Who's mailing them out? And who's paying for all these envelopes, labels that the clerk's office is having to purchase since you're going to be doing a lot of absentees with return of ballots? So who's paying for the tickets versus all the postcards?
I would assume the commissioners.
Well, Bobby, I think that's something that we addressed with regards to the motion that we would be providing to the commissioners a recommendation that this be done, and then the commissioners would be carrying the water before the council in order to get the funding allocated, because obviously this expenditure would put us over the budget, and it would have been grossly over the budget were it to have been the other option. So I thought that this was
Okay, I wasn't sure whether or not it was clear, because what happens if it doesn't go from the commissioners to the council? Then it's a moot point.
Then it's a moot point because quite frankly, then I would hope that the public would look to the fact that the election board bipartisanly was trying to do something that got shut down by another arm of the county government.
And if I may, the commissioners bipartisanly already voted on getting things like this done.
So they've already voted on it?
They voted on working with the election board to be able to send out absentee ballot request forms. So yes.
They don't hold the purse strings, though.
Pardon?
They don't hold the purse strings.
Well, and again, I think it's not hard for anybody to read between the lines and see that we're trying to do something, and if it gets hamstrung somewhere else, then the buck stops with them.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to get involved in this political stuff that's going back and forth with who does what, when, and why, and how. We've made a decision of what we want to do, and if someone doesn't back us up because they don't want to pay for it, well, explain that to the populace then.
Okay, that's fine.
Hi, I'm Gail Keynes. I work in voter registration. I was here in 2016, and it was a little bit different then. We didn't know what was coming at us. This year we kind of do. It was very busy. I want to say how hard we've all worked, and we are still working. Kathy, everybody.
No, absolutely.
And what I wanted to say was that when people call, we put things on the website, we put things out on Facebook, we tell everyone to tell everyone that all they have to do is call. They just have to call our office. I hook them right up with an absentee ballot. They can't even believe how fast it is. We've gotten the word out more and more. From 2016 to now, it's unbelievable. And we really do. I mean, we take a lot of phone calls. We help a lot of people. I don't want you to think we're just sitting there saying, no.
No, not at all.
We do the very best that we can. We have awesome people that work for the absentee. And
I would like to respond to that. I will say that the presence that I have seen on social media from various individuals posting about SVRS and absentee stuff and contact the clerk's office, et cetera, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
it's on just about every site you can conceive of that I've been contacted about. That why are they putting out this information? Well, because it's important to put out. So we appreciate what you're doing. Absolutely.
The Republicans, the Democrats, the Indivisibles, the League of Women Voters, a lot of people are involved. It's not just, it's really trying to get the vote out. And I just want you to know that we do take it very seriously, and we work really hard, and we will work hours on end this month. So anyway, prayers to be with us would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do remember what an experience the 2016 election was on election day.
You were here.
So, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Darlene Hale, LaPorte County IT Director. I just want to make a comment toward the web page that is there. I was instructed by the county commissioners to create something to direct or help people, realize the different ways they could request a ballot by mail. In no way did I take it as their intention to go around the election board or anything like that. That was just to get information out there. If you provide me with what you want to be on that webpage, I will gladly update it at any time.
Okay.
So I know Kathy has told me that the address needs to be Suite 105 versus 101. So there's already some updates. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Coral Lawn. I'm still at 386 Evanston Road in Kingsford Heights. I wanted to make sure that you understood when I was making the expression about dropping the dust and having the germs more all over the county versus just at so many polling places. I didn't want you to misunderstand what I was talking about.
I understood you. I made that motion, and it didn't even reach a second. So
Right. The other thing is, If someone tells you 3 weeks ago you have to have a wedding cake, you know how much time it takes to make a wedding cake, or you don't have to know, you just can imagine, right? Now, if someone says, tomorrow there's a wedding, we got to get a wedding cake made, that's almost an impossibility. And by that, it's kind of like sending out these postcards or the letters to try to, they don't realize how close this is. When you were referring to like Allen County and these others, you were saying they have done. That's past tense. That means they've already begun the task. Here we are. We're just going to start this task. We're going to have just a couple days. I feel so badly for the people who will take the time to do the process, but U.S. Postal Service is a bear, and they do not act very quickly. That's my worry of all that you asked. So thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. I see some of the things you guys are trying to implement, and it's needed. But I'm also concerned about you sending out applications for absentee ballots. Why not send out applications for voter registration? Why are we not doing that? There's a lot of us who want to register to vote, but y'all won't even send us the forms. We got a lot of nonsense going on up here, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. Shaw Freeman's in the middle of all of this. Y'all don't want to say what it is, but when you mess that absentee ballots, you have a chance to control some elections and the outcome of some elections also. And I don't like that, not one bit. We need to, like you said earlier, we all need to work together and start paying attention to one another. I live in Michigan City. Some of y'all don't live in Michigan City. And we don't want to see early voting. We don't want to see voting in our school system, just like y'all have it over here in LaPorte. If it's good for you over here, it should be good for us over in Michigan City. We need to start changing things and consider the people that's involved. We was under impression, including members of the NAACP, local branch 3061, that you guys are actually trying to just make mail-in voting, period. There's people putting on Facebook right now today saying that it was only going to be mail-in voting only. And then I started listening to Mr. Nelson, and I'm pretty sure this is coming from Shaw, but recommendations? Don't nobody care nothing about recommendations. That's wrong. That's like an old lady or my mother going to the Apex and get her car looked over. Well, we recommend you change the brake pads. That recommendation goes a long way. I say we just go vote by machine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Dennis Matheny. The things I want to bring up are all from Indiana Election Commission Order 2020-37. One of the items, which is Section 12A, polling places can be condensed to less due to the virus emergency, and people may not want to work at them, which was discussed. So now looks like you may be supplying PPE, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis.
At least offering it to them.
No, we're getting it.
Okay.
And it's not just going to be an offer. And this is coming from downstate. And I guess I should have brought this up earlier. What is coming from downstate being supplied by the state of Indiana to the county of LaPorte, 3,000 masks, 2,600 pairs of gloves, 30 gallons of hand sanitizer, 108 bottles of hand sanitizer, 44 gallons of surface cleaner, 89 bottles for surface cleaner, and 1,750 microfiber towels.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you're going to be able to supply that to the people that work it. One of the other items is I brought up earlier about voting centers. This comes under Section 13 of that same order. And it states that in a voting center, you can have one for the first 25,000 people. And every 5,000 thereafter, then you need another voting center. So just to bring that up, maybe I'm trying to help educate you being new on the board. I've gone to meetings so long in this county for over 35 years. I do research to check on this stuff. So that's Section 13 if you want to look that up. Then also for the nursing homes and stuff where you're going to send those out, it's item 8C, and they need affidavits of assistance pre-3, State Form 28192 R10 /5-19. So for those people to collect those voter registration forms, they have to have this affidavit. So that's item 8C. So I like to give you the specific code so that you don't have to think I'm trying to feed you something different. Now, some of the other things that Mr. Nelson brought up here, and if you don't mind, I'd rather say Mr. Nelson than your last name because I don't want to mess it up.
That's perfectly fine.
Because mine gets messed up plenty of time. But anyway, I think that before you voted for him as president, I think it was great that you brought that up. But I think the president should have also asked him the same question to respond back to you in the same answer. Just my opinion. The other thing, the state law states that not-for-profits in schools shall hold elections there. That's the state law. That's not may, that's a shall.
I think you're misstating that. It's shall. Let me get the exact wording.
Okay.
Just to be clear, shall be open to, I believe, is what the language reads in the statute. So
okay.
that's a little bit of a wiggle spot there, and the law was drafted by an attorney because it's shall versus may. You're absolutely correct, but shall be open to.
Okay.
Is the clause then that says it shall be open to, not must.
Thank you for clarifying that. But so then I would like to also bring up to Mr. Nelson there the background on these machines. These machines were voted on. There were a couple groups that voted on them. And the individuals that were in charge of that was Mr. Marlo Harmon, a Democrat, who was the commissioner president, and Mr. Bob Beeler, who was the clerk. They were the ones that voted for these machines. Now, the ones that program them, if I'm not mistaken, is a company out of Chicago. Is that correct? Does anybody know that?
I don't have the answer to that.
Well, that's what I was told when the machines were there.
Chicago.
It's out of Indianapolis? Okay, thank you. But anyway, the machines, which I didn't want machines. I like voting where you write it on paper. But that's okay. That's what we got. That's what we're living with. And it almost sounds like we're going to be changing them pretty soon.
Yeah, that is on the horizon.
Yeah, I heard that too. So I guess rumors become fire after a while. Otherwise, churches. Now, I worked 2 elections at the election. And I didn't see any problem with the churches having it because they're a not-for-profit, and there we're back to the shall again with the rest of the...
And again, the issue there is so the problem is that a number of statutes have been suspended with regards to the government's executive order that with the stay-at-home and with the directives related to certain gatherings of large people, et cetera, my understanding is those are being relaxed now. So we don't know what's going to happen next week. But it's an option that's out there. You're absolutely correct.
We don't know what the governor's going to say at 1:30 because we're here.
He already said it today, and I missed it. So
I know.
I don't know if he's extended anything or not. I'll have to find out later on tonight.
The thing with this sending information out, I've been voting in this county for 49 years. I will tell you that if I don't know after 49 years that I can get an absentee ballot or I can go and vote early voting, I must be pretty stupid because I've voted every time since I was 21 because back then we had to be 21 because I'm old. I'm 72 years old almost. So I've been voting a long time in this county and I've been a resident of this county that whole time. And I agree with what you board does. And I've been to some of these board meetings and I'm going to tell you what, you're lucky to see 2 people out here. That's how the public just doesn't seem to want to come to these meetings. Maybe sometimes because they're this long. But I like to sit and listen to the whole thing.
This is the longest election board meeting that I've been involved with in the last 6 years.
I believe that because I've been following county meetings for 35 years and I've never seen one go this long. But I do support what you're doing. Whether I disagree with what you do, I still agree that I support what you people have to do because it ain't an easy job. The other thing with due respect to you, Mr. Nelson, you being new on this board, I think you should have done a lot more listening than a lot more talking. Just my opinion. And we need to, I appreciate you being lawyers because you know the law, but I don't like lawyers writing up 17 pages of something. We ought to make the elected write it up, because then it'll only be on one page. And I'm talking on the microphone, please. The other thing is, I don't know where you come up with the 15,000, but Kathy come up with 50. And I've said in a lot of these commissioners and council meetings where it was $45,000, and they come back for more money for an election. So it costs a lot of money to do these elections. And I'm a taxpayer for a lot of years, and I don't like spending that kind of money if it doesn't have to be spent. And for the county to do a month of early voting, and if people can't get there in a month, then they need to get there on election day. And it's 12 hours a day on election day. Working at the polls, I've seen some people come in 2 minutes after 6 o'clock, and they can't vote. So you got 12 hours. Other than that, I guess I've run my mouth too much, but I certainly appreciate everything you do. I back you, Kathy. I just don't think you have enough time. I think we ought to look at this for the next election, because in my opinion, this is a virus this year. We're going to have another one in the fall because we have the flu every year. I think people need to get ready. We're going to have the same thing in the fall. I hope it's not November. Thank you, and have a good day, and please be safe.
Thank you, Dennis. Moving on, board member comments. Kathy, do you have anything?
I don't have any.
Okay. Nelson, anything further?
I stated my comment during other business. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I don't have any comments other than I need to get back to my dog. So at this point, I will move to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn the election board meeting held Friday, May 1st, 2020.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.